LoveLore Library. Chapter 272. No matter what kind of words, they're already unable to express their shock. A person with atrophied meridians, destroyed chi, and a crippled leg, has actually recovered after a year. And not only has he recovered, but even his cultivation has improved. In the end, how was this done? And who was it that healed him? Shen Jinglin ruthlessly steps on Zhao Chunming's chest with one foot, as if he wants to trample out his internal organs. Zhao Chunming, an ungrateful, unscrupulous beast like you simply doesn't deserve to live in this world. Have you forgotten who was the one who took care of you day and night when you were injured in the jungle? It was Fang Jingya. Have you forgotten, you used to surround Jingya every day, acting obedient to curry favor, and you even swore to the heavens, saying that if you married her, you would definitely treat her well. Fang Jingya's eyes are brimming with tears, blankly looking at the godlike Shen Jinglin. Tears can't help but fall from the rims of her eyes. Zhao Chunming's whole body is trembling in pain, his face overflowing with snot and tears. Jinglin Ji, I was wrong, boo-hoo, spare me, spare me. I was blinded by lard. I beg you to spare my life. Just then, a group of people suddenly appear out of nowhere. With a loud bang, they jump onto the stage. These people all have weapons glittering with cold light in their hands. Each person exudes a formidable pressure and murderous aura, making the onlookers below feel a burst of fear. Shen Jinglin raises his head and looks at these people. Who are you people? Hee, who we are doesn't need Shen Dashao to care. The person in the lead sneers, we still request Shen Dashao to make a trip with us. As soon as Zhao Chunming sees those people, the pleading expression on his face immediately changes. With a distorted face, he shouts, Shen Jinglin, my godfather's people are here, you still haven't let me go, cough, 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 even if your cultivation has recovered, so what? Could it be that one person can still deal with so many people? Godfather. Shen Jinglin frowns. That's right, do you know who my godfather is? Because of the pain, Zhao Chunming continuously coughs a few times, but his face is filled with crazy resentment. My godfather is the great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng, and he's also the apprentice of the godly Dr. Qian Qing. You and your sister, you've offended my godfather. Cough, cough, cough. You're dead meat. Ha. Ha. Ah. Before he could finish laughing, he suddenly let out a short scream. Then, blood burst out from Zhao Chunming's face. In the blink of an eye, his tongue was cut off, his ears were cut off, and his eyes became two bloody holes. Even his hands had been chopped off. His fingers were still trembling at the side, emitting a deathly greenish-gray color. Useless trash. The leader sneered and sheathed his saber. His voice was full of disdain. You can't even do such a small thing. What's the point of keeping you around? Zhao Chunming originally thought that these people sent by Deng Hongfeng were here to save him. However, he would never have thought that in the end, the one who would completely destroy him would be the subordinates of his godfather, whom he had tried to please in every possible way. From now on, he would live a life worse than a pig or a dog, but he could neither die nor live. This was retribution. Everyone present was shocked, and no one would pay attention to him anymore. Everyone's eyes are focused on Shen Jinglin. Shen Dashao, please. Shen Jinglin coldly looks at the people surrounding him. Chapter 273. The bearded man in the lead was at the earth stage, and the surging profound energy aura was even thicker than his. It was almost impossible for him to deal with these people alone. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to follow this group of people obediently. Just now, he could already tell that this group of people captured him to deal with Yan Yan. What if I don't leave? Not leaving. The leaders seem to have heard a joke. If young Master Shen doesn't want to leave, then I can only do what I did to Zhao Chunming, and cut off 2 parts from your body, such as a hand or a leg or something. Young Master Shen's leg has just been cured. I don't think he wants to be crippled again so soon. Shen Jinglin tightly clenched his fists, his eyes looking like they were about to spit fire. There was no trace of cowardice on his face. Instead, he assumed an attacking posture. Even if he dies, he will never allow himself to be a burden to Yan Yan. Ha! You want to resist? Then don't blame us for being ruthless. You can only blame your younger sister. Who asked her to be blind and offend someone she shouldn't have? As soon as his voice fell, the bearded man in the lead raised his long knife and fiercely slashed it towards Shen Jinglin. The majestic Xian Qi surged in the air, causing the people below the grandstand to reveal a horrified expression and retreat. Many people were full of sympathy and pity for Shen Jinglin. It wasn't easy for him to heal his leg injury and recover his cultivation, but he was going to become a cripple once more. Who was this Shen Jinglin's younger sister? How could he be so blind? It's not good to offend anyone in Tianyuan City, but he had to offend Dr. Deng of Xian Medical Pavilion. Wasn't that courting death? Profound qi surged in the air, and the pressure was cold and murderous. All of a sudden, melodious music drifted over from afar, approaching in spirals. The music was clearly like the flowing water of a high mountain, distant and gentle. But for some reason, it rang in his ears. However, it made the blood of everyone who heard it boil a little. Shen Jinglin, who had fallen into a desperate situation and was being besieged, suddenly raised his head, his eyes shining brightly. She seemed to feel guilty and touched at the same time. The rest of the people present seemed to be in a daze as they stood there with their heads raised, unable to come back to their senses for a long time. After a while, pink flower petals fluttered down from the sky. The flower petals were sparse and there weren't many of them. But as if it had a life of its own, it automatically stuck to the killer surrounding Shen Jinglin. The bearded man was still immersed in the music that tugged at his heartstrings. Suddenly feeling the petals falling on his face, he couldn't help but reach out to touch them. A strange fragrance accompanied by a bone-piercing chill seeped into the muscles and bones. The bearded man's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. However, before he could move, a loud bang rang out beside his ear, accompanied by a tearing pain, and the flesh on his body burst open. Blood-curdling screams came from the arena. In just a few short breaths, the dozen or so people surrounding Shen Jinglin had all fallen to the ground. Their bodies were badly mutilated, and besides letting out painful groans, they couldn't do anything else. In the sky, the melodious music was getting further and further away. However, the figure of a young girl in white seemed to descend from the sky and slowly landed on the arena. The young girl's face was like the snow on the heavenly mountain, cold and bright, inviolable. However, her every movement was filled with charm and indolence. Just by looking at her, one would fall head over heels for her. Chapter 274. When her feet touched the ground, her gaze landed on Shen Jinglin and the corners of her lips slowly curled up. Her entire body exuded a natural charm. Everyone who saw her could not help but hold their breaths as their souls were being taken away. "Brother, why are you taking so long to do something? If we don't go back now, we'll miss dinner time." The young girl's voice was indescribably clear and melodious, like ice beads falling on a jade plate, lingering around his ears. Shen Jinglin blushed with shame and said guiltily, "I'm sorry, Yan Yan, it's all because Big Brother is too useless. I still need you to save me." How could it be Big Brother's fault? Mu Yen chuckles and looks at the bearded man and the others who are lying on the ground. "I just heard you say that I'm blind and have offended someone I shouldn't have. I also heard you say that my brother doesn't know what's good for him, so you want to chop off some of his body parts." When she said this, the young girl's smile was bright and beautiful, and her tone was gentle. She was like a girl who was not familiar with the affairs of the world. But everyone, whether it was on or off the stage. But when he saw the young girl's smile, he felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine, and his whole body trembled. Suddenly, someone in the crowd stared at Mu Yan's face. Suddenly, a light flashed, and he let out a loud cry. She's the Enchantress June Mayan. She's that fairy doctor from the Junji Medical Center who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell. In an instant, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Absolute silence. Everyone present was dumbfounded. The Enchantress Mu Yan. This exceptionally beautiful young woman in front of him turns out to be Tianyuan City's most popular enchantress, June Mayan. So to say, Shen Jinglin was actually the Enchantress' older brother. And the person who offended the great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng, was June Mayan. Everyone was dumbfounded for a moment. The people who were just talking all at once, saying that Shen Jinglin's younger sister did not have good eyesight, at this time, all of them shut up. Can't say another word. What else could he say? No matter how powerful Deng Hongfeng's background was. But the Enchantress Mayan's medical skills have already reached the level of superlative workmanship, unparalleled under the heavens. Many people had analyzed that the Enchantress's medical skills might even be superior to the godly Dr. Qian Qing's. Who should he offend more? You only need to look at the current situation of the Junji Medical Center and the Hongfu Medical Center, and you'll be able to see it clearly. Ah! So Shen Jinglin is the Enchantress of Medicine's older brother, then it's no wonder that his cultivation base can progress, and his leg that was broken for a year can be restored to its original state. Someone suddenly cried out in surprise, suddenly realizing something. The others nodded one after another. Their gazes toward Shen Jinglin had long since lost the original pity, only envy and jealousy remained. Having a younger sister like June Mayan is really too fortunate. This was equivalent to Shen Jinglin having an extra life compared to ordinary people. Even if he suffers a fatal injury, June Mayan can still pull him back from the gates of hell. But for an ordinary person to see the Enchantress and ask for a diagnosis, it is extremely difficult. In fact, these people didn't know yet. Mu Yan isn't just a doctor who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell. She's even a godly apothecary who can refine heaven-defying drafts. Nowadays, the Ghost City is in an uproar. Every time a special draft appears, it would be auctioned off at a sky-high price, and it's all from this girl's hands. One day, when the news came, it's not just the small city of Tianyuan that's shaken, but the entire Qi Yan country, and even the entire Yanwu continent. Chapter 275. The bearded man's entire body was trembling, and his eyes were filled with terror. He knew better than anyone how powerful this woman was. After Deng Hongfeng was slapped in the face in public, how could he take it lying down? He even went straight to the mercenary agency and spent a lot of money to hire a lot of mercenaries to kill this woman. However, no matter how much money was spent and how many mercenaries were dispatched, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. If he was alive, they couldn't see him. If he was dead, they couldn't see his corpse. Because June Mayan has a group of very frightening subordinates by her side. Every single one of them had an extremely high cultivation level, and when they joined forces, they could sweep through Tianyuan City. The mercenaries sent by Deng Hongfeng can't even get close to Mayan, let alone teach her a lesson. This was also the reason why Deng Hongfeng wanted Zhao Chunming to come forward and use Fang Jingya to draw Shen Jinglin out. As long as they catch Shen Jinglin, they won't have to be afraid that his younger sister, June Mayan, won't obediently submit. However, their wishful thinking was interrupted in the end. This woman not only had a group of experts by her side. She herself was an expert who was strong enough to make them tremble. You, don't mess around. The bearded man's voice trembled as he growled in a threatening manner. If you kill us, you'll have completely offended Dr. Dang. Do you know where Dr. Dang came from? His master is Qian Qing. Do you know who Dr. Qian Qing is? He's Jingqing country's national doctor. Even Princess Gong Qinshue treats him as a distinguished guest. Ah! Before the man could finish his words, he suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain, causing him to let out a mournful howl. Then, as if he had gone mad, he kept digging at his flesh with his own hands. He couldn't hit his head against the ground. Even when the flesh on his face had been clawed off, revealing his ghastly white bones, he still refused to stop. The corners of Mayan's mouth are still hooked up in a shallow arc. But that smile didn't reach his eyes at all. Her beautiful peach blossom eyes were filled with bone-chilling coldness. Is that so? I'm really looking forward to the consequences of completely offending Qian Qing's disciple. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a clang, and the sound of the zither turned into a blade, flowing with thousands of lights. In the blink of an eye, the musical notes transformed into swords that slit the throats of all the assassins in the arena. Killed in one move. Everyone was as quiet as a cicada in winter, and even a pin drop could be heard. Even Shen Jinglin was sluggish. He already knew that his sister was powerful, but he didn't expect her to be this powerful. Moreover, why did he feel that his sister was giving off an icy aura? Even he felt a trace of fear. Just at this moment, a clear childish voice rang out, "Mommy, come home." A fair and tender little hand grasps Mayan's slender and fair fingers, gently squeezing them. Mu Yan lowers her head to look at Xiao Bao's handsome and exquisite little face. His icy blue eyes were like the clear sky, boundless and encompassing everything in the world. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve into a gentle smile. The ice-cold baleful aura around his body disappeared without a trace in an instant. He bent down and picked up Xiao Bao. The gentle voice was like the sound of nature as it resounded by Shen Jinglin and Xiao Bao's ears. "And, let's go home." At night, in the Junji Medical Center. Mu Yan looks at the scars all over the delicate woman's body under the light, and can't help but frown deeply. Even if she had seen all kinds of patients, and she had also suffered all kinds of torture in her past life. But the injuries on Fang Jingya's body still make her shocked. Chapter 276. Just the traces of inhumane abuse on the woman's lower body makes Mayan's eyes turn cold, her murderous aura awe-inspiring. She takes a deep breath, and slowly says, "Who did these things to you?" "Xiao Chunming." If it was that beast Xiao Chunming who did it, then the punishment that Big Brother gave him in the end was really light. Fang Jingya doesn't shyly cover up her ugly and dirty body that's full of scars. She only shakes her head in distress. "It wasn't Xiao Chunming, he liked to hit me, liked to burn me with candles, but the one who used that kind of insane method to abuse me was the godfather who sent me to him. The great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng." Mayan's pupils slightly contract. She listens to Fang Jingya continue, "Deng Hongfeng likes to rob women, but only a few people know about it. He simply can't, because he can't. He thought of all kinds of cruel methods to abuse women, to give vent to his perverted desires." As she speaks, she can't help but let tears slide down from the corners of her eyes. "In the beginning, I still wanted to resist, but the result of my resistance was that I became more and more miserable. In fact, I wanted to end my own life a long time ago. It was already so dirty, so why didn't I end my own life? Isn't it my own fault that I've ended up in this plight?" Mayan grabs the clothes on the side and firmly wraps her up. The voice that's usually languid has a rare softness. Ending your own life is the most cowardly way to escape. "Don't cry, I will cure the injuries on your body." Fang Jingya raises her tearful eyes to look at Mayan, deep gratitude welling up in the bottom of her eyes. Miss June, thank you. Thank you for not despising me for being so dirty, and for being willing to help me. But... She slowly closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. When she opens them again, there's only determination left in her eyes. But I don't need treatment, I just want to leave this place, leave Tianyuan City forever, and disappear in front of Shinji. Miss June, can you promise me this? Mayan stares blankly. Why? Fong Jingya's tears drop by drop from the corners of her eyes. All the pain, mourning, guilt, and sadness interweave into despair. When Big Brother Shin was in the most danger, I chose to abandon him. Now that I've fallen into such a state, I only have myself to blame, but Elder Brother Shin is still willing to disregard everything to save me. In fact, for the sake of morality, for the sake of our past relationship, and for the sake of my current dire situation, he might even propose to marry me. But, how could I possibly marry Elder Brother Chin? Not to mention that Elder Brother Chin actually doesn't have feelings for me between a man and a woman. Even if he does, the current me simply isn't worthy of him. The more she spoke, the more her tears fell like a broken dam, and her voice was choked with sobs. My body is already dirty. In fact, you know better than anyone that I've lost the chance to be a mother forever under the ravages of those two bastards, Deng Hongfeng and Zhao Chunming. How can someone like me be worthy of standing beside Elder Brother Shin? He's such a good person, he deserves the most outstanding girl to become his wife. Fong Jingya grabs Mayan's hand, tears streaming down her face, but there's not the slightest trace of retreat or wavering in her eyes. Chapter 277. Mayan sighs softly. Are you really willing to leave my brother forever? Fong Jingya nods without hesitation. I'd rather never touch my feelings in this life. It's enough as long as I can silently watch Shin brother's happiness from afar. You've decided. You won't go back on your word. I vow to die without regrets. The emotions in Mayan's eyes slowly converge, turning into a touch of seriousness. She says in a low voice, Fong Jingya, I can help you kill Deng Hongfeng and avenge you. I can also give you enough strength to personally guard the things you want to guard. The condition is that you work for me for 10 years. Do you agree? Fong Jingya's eyes suddenly go wide, and she doesn't come back to herself for a long time. You're saying that you want me to work for you? You're not willing. No. I'm willing. Fong Jingya rolls down from the bed with a grunt, kneeling on the ground. I'm willing to serve you as my master. Henceforth, Fong Jingya's life is yours. Not to mention 10 or 20 years, even if it's a lifetime, how many people in Tianyuan City would be willing to work for Mayan? Not for anything else, just for the name of the Enchantress of Medicine. Just for her medical skills that can bring the dead back to life. She, Fong Jingya, doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken, she's riddled with scars, and she has no innocence at all. But this woman in front of her is willing to take her in. If she's not willing, then she's really stupid. Mayan says with a smile that isn't a smile, what do I want your life for? But I have to say some ugly words first. Those who work for me must have enough ability, enough willpower, and pass my assessment. If you don't succeed, even with my brother's relationship, I will let you leave immediately. Hearing Mayan's seemingly heartless words, Fong Jingya's eyes brighten even more. Because this time, she believes that Mayan isn't pitying her, but really wants to cultivate her as a subordinate. For the current Fong Jingya, she's almost lost her goal and hope to live. But now, Mayan has given her a new one. To become stronger, to guard the man she's grateful to for a lifetime. Even if one day you marry a wife and have children, even if one day you have a house full of grandchildren, I am willing to watch over you in the dark and protect your happiness until the end of your life. Mu Yan calls for Ru Yan, then points to Fong Jingya and says, I'll leave this person to you to train. Ru Yen stared blankly, not quite understanding her master's meaning. He only listens to mine continue. I'll give you 3 months. Whether you poach from the ghost city or recruit from outside, after 3 months, form a mercenary corps that's no less than the Ink camp. When Ru Yan heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. Miss means, I can also be like Yen Shi and organize a team of experts. That's great, I'll go to the ghost city's Wanren-ku to pick people later. She had been jealous of Yen Haotian for a long time. Her strength is obviously not worse than Yen Haotian's, but Yen Haotian has the Ink camp in his hands, and she can only manage the shop. It should be known that each and every one of the people in the Ink camp is as arrogant as if they want to go to heaven. Other than Miss, Little Master, and Yen Haotian, that rock, he didn't care about anyone else. Unfortunately, these people are nothing if they're singled out, but when they're grouped together, their strength is terrifying. Plus, after entering Tianyuan City, Yen Haotian still continued to strengthen the Ink camp according to Mayan's orders. This makes her extremely envious and jealous. Chapter 278. No, you're wrong. Who would have thought that Mayan would shake her head? This time, I don't want people from Wanren-ku. I want those who look unremarkable, who can blend in with the crowd and not be discovered. These people don't have high cultivation, but they must be good at disguise and hiding. I want you to train them for 3 months, and then let them sneak into Jingcheng and Huangyao. Ru Yan is a little disappointed when she hears Mayan's words at first. It must be known that Yen Haotian is picking elites, people who have killed their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. If she only picks some inconspicuous ones, wouldn't she be immediately outdone? However, the more she hears, the brighter Ru Yan's eyes become. Because she already understands. The Miss wants her to form this team of mercenaries, not to fight, but to spy on intelligence. After thinking it through, Ru Yan nods again and again, carefully listening to Mayan's instructions. The more she listens, the more she admires the Miss's foresight and wisdom. Moreover, Ru Yan doesn't doubt whether this team of experts can be formed, and whether they have enough loyalty. Don't forget who Mayan is. Not only is she an enchantress who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell, but she's also a godly apothecary who can refine a heaven-defying potion. Everything that needs to be explained has been explained. Mayan's line of sight sweeps over Fong Jingya, and she slowly says, "This camp is called Tianji, with you as the leader and Jingya as your assistant. Tonight, I will cure Jingya's injuries. Tomorrow morning, you will leave with her to prepare." "Yes, miss." Ru Yan leaves, full of joy. Fong Jingya, on the other hand, puts on her clothes, and respectfully kneels in front of Mayan. Jingya will never forget Mrs. Grace of Rebirth. "I will definitely go through water and tread on fire to serve Mississippi." Mayan curls up the corner of her lips, slightly narrowing her eyes as she says, "You can rest assured, I will definitely let you see the miserable end of your enemies. Whether it's the Xian Medical Pavilion that harmed your entire Fong family or Dang Hongfeng." However, what Mayan didn't expect is that she still hasn't made a move against Dang Hongfeng. Dang Hongfeng's scheme has already fallen on the Junji Medical Center. Due to Mayan's growing fame, compared to those doctors who were previously unwilling to accept the Junji Medical Center's offer to provide medical services, there are now a bunch of doctors who are cracking their heads, wanting to drill into the Junji Medical Center. Just because, working in the Junji Medical Center, they might be able to witness the miraculous medical skills of the Enchantress of Medicine with their own eyes. Because Mu Yan herself is busy with too many things. Therefore, in the end, he still chose a few honest people with solid medical skills to serve in the clinic. Those who come to the Junji Medical Center aren't all terminally ill. These doctors are more than enough to treat common illnesses, so even if Mayan only treats a few patients a day, it doesn't affect the popularity of Junji Medical Center. On this day, the clinic opened as usual. It was bustling with people coming and going. Suddenly, a woman's scream came from Dr. Yu's seat not far away. "Husband, husband, how are you? Don't scare me." Hearing the voice, everyone turned their gazes over. A beautiful woman was supporting a tall middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered before collapsing. Chapter 279. But why did my husband become like this after he was pricked with needles? Dr. Yu is also somewhat flustered. He promptly steps out of his position and crouches down next to the middle-aged man. But before Dr. Yu can take his pulse with his trembling hands, the middle-aged man's whole body is already twitching, and his eyes turn white in a split second. "Husband!" The beautiful woman screams again. She reaches out to check her husband's breath, but she finds that it's already completely gone, dead. Dead! My husband is dead. Boo-hoo-hoo, husband, how could you leave me alone? Dr. Yu's hand is still holding that middle-aged man's wrist. Feeling the deathly stillness under his skin without a pulse, his complexion also goes deathly pale. This middle-aged man is actually really dead. How is this possible? I've clearly taken his pulse, there's nothing wrong with his condition. How could this be? It's you. You're the one who killed him. The beautiful woman suddenly jumps up from the ground, grabbing Dr. Yu's collar and shouting, "You quack, return my husband's life." Although Dr. Yu is a doctor, his cultivation is lower than this beautiful woman's. Being dragged by her, he simply can't break free. He can only shout in a panic, "Impossible. It's really impossible, it's clearly impossible." The beautiful woman doesn't care about what he's saying. She drags him to the door, and starts to yell at the top of her voice. Someone come quickly ah. The Junji Medical Center treated someone to death, but they refuse to admit it. They say that there's an Enchantress who can bring the dead back to life, but in fact, they're all quacks. My husband was only lightly injured, but when he was treated by the doctors here, he died instead. This commotion alarms everyone inside and outside the medical center. The in-camp practitioners responsible for the medical center's safety these past few days see Dr. Yu being dragged away, and they promptly rush over to rescue her. The in-camp sweating men are all rough and clumsy. They don't seem to use much strength in their movements, but that beautiful woman unexpectedly stumbles and falls to the ground. Soon after, she starts to cry in an earth-shattering manner. Is there still law in Tianyuan City? The Junji Medical Center treated someone to death, and now they still want to kill this widow to silence her. Everyone, quickly come and judge for me ah. Could it be that the so-called Enchantress can treat human life as grass, recklessly harming people? The woman was a beautiful woman. Even if she were to throw a tantrum and cry like this, I would still feel sorry for her. In addition, someone went to take a look at the middle-aged man lying on the ground. Sure enough, he was no longer breathing and his body was cold. It was obvious that he was already dead. This time, the crowd of onlookers and the patients seeking treatment at the Junji Medical Center immediately start pointing at the people from the ink camp and Dr. Yu. I saw that man just now. His injuries weren't that serious. Who knew he would die in the blink of an eye? It's definitely because the Junji Medical Center's doctors didn't treat him well and killed him. Oh my, there's actually this kind of quack in Junji Medical Center. I think we'd better not look here. What if my minor illness is also cured to the point that it's beyond cure? Those big men in the ink camp are simply extremely sullen. He couldn't wait to rush over and tear that beautiful woman apart. They clearly didn't do anything, and yet they said that they wanted to silence them. If they really wanted to kill someone, would it be her turn to speak here? Seeing that the situation couldn't be suppressed any longer, Old Tao promptly sends someone to the backyard to inform Mu Yen. Chapter 280. Dr. Yu's face was filled with panic, but his eyes were filled with confusion. I'm not sure either. When I examined him, he really only suffered from ordinary internal injuries. I used acupuncture to force out the extravasated blood in his body. Originally, he should have recovered after taking medicine for 2 days. But I don't know how it became like this. Old Tao narrowed his eyes and looked at the middle-aged man who was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He had a bad premonition in his heart. Just then, a large group of people dressed in uniforms suddenly rushed into Junji Medical Center with fiendish expressions. I am Tianyuan City's Deputy General Liu. I heard that there was a murder case in Junji Medical Center. Is this true? As soon as the beautiful woman saw this group of people, it was as if she had met her savior. She rushed over and knelt on the ground, tears streaming down her face as she said, Lord Deputy General, you must seek justice for my husband. My husband was a good person, but after being treated by this quack of Junji Medical Center, he unexpectedly died like this. Now they still want to use their power to silence me. I beseech the city governor and Lord Deputy General to seek justice for this common woman. Vice General Liu listened to the perfect woman's complaint. His sharp gaze swept across and landed on the dead middle-aged man. With a wave of his hand, he shouts in a deep voice, the Junji Medical Center has caused the death of a person, this crime is unforgivable. Guards, go and arrest everyone in the Junji Medical Center for me, including their shopkeeper, and bring them all back to the penal prison. Old Tao's complexion turns completely unsightly in a split second. This Deputy General, the matter still hasn't been thoroughly investigated. How can you casually convict our Junji Medical Center? Right now, we can't be sure that this patient was killed by a doctor from our clinic. Who else could it be other than you guys? The beautiful woman sobbed. Before that, my husband was clearly fine, but after this doctor examined him, he died just like that. If he wasn't the one who killed him, could it be that I killed my own husband? Old Tao had already realized that something was wrong. Even if the doctor in the medical center really killed someone, how could the officials arrive so quickly? It was obvious that this was a trap deliberately set up against their medical center. Old Tao was about to speak when another shout came from the door. Get out of the way. Dr. Deng of Xian Medical Pavilion has graced us with his presence. What are you still standing there for, still not coming to greet him? Hearing that, everyone turned around to look. Deng Hongfeng swaggered in, escorted by a few servants. When Deputy General Liu saw him, he immediately showed a respectful expression. Dr. Deng, why are you here? I heard that someone in this Junji Medical Center had been treated to death, so I came to take a look. As Deng Hongfeng spoke, he frowned and shook his head. That's why I've said it before. Not every Tom, Dick, or Harry can open a clinic and become a doctor. The benevolence of doctors was to save lives. What right did a clinic that had killed people have to exist? In the future, I will definitely have Xian Medical Pavilion raise the standards for examining doctors. I can't let those quacks mix with doctors to harm others. Vice General Liu nodded again and again, with a flattering smile on his face. Dr. Deng, you are the only senior doctor in our Tianyuan city. How can those little girls who haven't even fully grown hair compare to her? Who doesn't know that Dr. Qian Qing is Yanwu Continent's #1 godly doctor? What enchantress of medicine, music doctor, they're not even fit to carry shoes for him and you. Deng Hongfeng nodded arrogantly, then walked to the side of the middle-aged man and squatted down to take a look. Chapter 281. When the beautiful woman heard this, her eyes immediately lit up and she loudly said, even Dr. Deng has said so, what else do you have to say? Lord Deputy General, you must not let the murderer go. Deputy General Liu immediately waves his hand, there's a murderous look in his eyes. Come, take away all the murderers for me and interrogate them, seal up the Junji Medical Center. The sabers and swords in the hands of the people below clanged, and they were about to speak. Suddenly, a melodious and sweet-sounding voice drifted over with a hint of indifference. Murderer. Ha, who told you that this man is dead? Almost at the same time, everyone turned to look at the source of the sound. He saw a young girl dressed in green slowly walking over, holding the hand of a child of about 4 or 5 years old. The girl's makeup was light, but her face was as delicate and beautiful as the bright moon. Her slightly raised eyebrows and the corner of her eyes contained a trace of indescribable languid charm. Just a glance at those sparkling peach blossom eyes would cause one's mind to be seized and their soul to be hooked. And she was holding the little boy by her hand. He was clearly at such a tender age, but his handsome face was expressionless. His blue eyes were as cold as ice. As he slowly walked over, he unconsciously emitted a noble aura that was impossible to ignore. Many of the people present had never seen Mayan before. As soon as he saw her, it was as if he had lost his soul, and he could not recover for a long time. But there were also people who had seen her true appearance. After a moment of absent-mindedness, she couldn't help but cry out in alarm, "Enchantress! It's the Enchantress!" This shout caused the atmosphere in the medical center to suddenly change. Everyone looked at her with eager eyes. That atmosphere of quack doctors in Junji Medical Center just a moment ago disappears without a trace in a split second. The strength of a doctor did not depend on their eloquence and their titles. Instead, it was true strength. Mayan, on the other hand, uses her godly medical skills to conquer almost everyone in Tianyuan City. It was the complete opposite of those people's admiration. The moment Dang Hongfeng sees Mu Yan, his eyes almost spurt fire. Bitch, it's all because of this bitch. He had caused his reputation in Tianyuan City to fall to the ground. Now, even the Hongfu Medical Center would not be able to continue operating. At this moment, when he looked at this woman, he could no longer feel any greed. There was only hatred that made him want to tear her into pieces. But very quickly, he endured it and sneered, "What did I just hear? You said this person is not dead. Ha ha ha, the so-called Enchantress of medicine is actually at this level. Saying that this person isn't dead, would your Junji Medical Center's own doctors believe it? Dr. Yu and the few other people in the Junji Medical Center who have seen the condition of that middle-aged man all have gloomy expressions as they lower their heads. They have been practicing medicine for decades, and they also have the qualifications of Xian Medical Pavilion's doctors. They could tell if a person was really dead or not. Dr. Yu shakily walks in front of Mayan, and he bends his knees, about to kneel down. "Miss, I've implicated you." However, before his knees could touch the ground, Mayan grabs him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and a sharp and leisurely smile appeared in his eyes. "It's still too early to say whether I've implicated you or not." Chapter 282. Deputy General Liu is originally looking at Mu Yan in a daze. His soul has been hooked away. Hearing the beautiful woman's call at this time, he suddenly sobers up. Meeting Dang Hongfeng's insidious eyes, he shudders and immediately resumes his fiendish appearance. "All right, it's already an established fact that your Junji Medical Center's quack doctors harm people and treat human life as grass. No matter how you quibble, it's useless. Just obediently follow me. Someone come." Deputy General Liu's words stir up the atmosphere. But Mu Yan doesn't seem to hear anything at all. She calmly passes through the guards, like she's taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard, slowly arriving in front of that middle-aged man. "Smelly woman, I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me?" Being ignored like this, Deputy General Liu immediately flies into a rage out of shame. His large palm, like a cattail leaf fan, is about to ruthlessly grab Mu Yan's shoulder. However, before Deputy General Liu's hand can touch Mu Yan, Xiao Bao expressionlessly lifts his hand that isn't being held, and pushes it out. Bang! There's a loud noise, and before everyone can even react, Deputy General Liu has already been sent flying out. Deputy General Liu was sent flying and crashed into a pillar, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Everyone is so shocked by this turn of events that they can't come back to their senses. No one even saw clearly who did it in that split second just now. At this time, Mu Yan has already arrived in front of that dead, middle-aged man. She reaches out and gently touches Xiao Bao's head. "Guard Nyangqin for me. Before I cure him, don't let anyone approach." Xiao Bao's little face is taut, and he nods in all seriousness. After instructing Xiao Bao, Mu Yan doesn't care about anything else. She takes out her silver needles and attentively inserts them into the major acupuncture points on the middle-aged man's head. Everyone in the clinic looks at each other in dismay, all somewhat dumbfounded. Can the dead really be brought back to life? That person really didn't die. How is that possible? Just now, you also went to check his breath, but there was no reaction at all. Moreover, his body is already cold. How could he still be brought back to life? But don't forget, that's the Enchantress of medicine who can snatch a life from the King of Hell. That's right, that woman's intestinal blockage a few days ago. Didn't that doctor in Tianyuan City say that it was incurable? But as the Enchantress made her move, the disease was cured within a day. Deng Hongfeng's expression became more and more unsightly as he listened to everyone's discussion. She knew that it was impossible for that man to come back to life. But for some reason, a bad feeling welled up in his heart. His fierce gaze swept over Deputy General Liu, who had just gotten up. Deputy General Liu pressed down on his aching abdomen, gritted his teeth, and waved his hand. Charge! If anyone in the Junji Medical Center dares to resist, kill without mercy. As soon as this was said, the patients in the clinic all revealed a horrified expression. They screamed and hid in the corner. But what's strange is that the people of Junji Medical Center, with the exception of those doctors in charge, are all calm and unperturbed. They don't even have the slightest intention of stopping them. Old Tao glances at Xiao Bao, who is standing guard in front of Mu Yan. He can't help but roll his eyes in disdain. Just based on this group of idiots, they wanted to gain any advantage from the young master. As long as he doesn't die too miserably. This thought had just flashed through old Tao's mind. Bang, bang, bang. The dozen or so city guard mansion guards were thrown out one by one like broken gunny sacks. Deputy General Liu spat out another mouthful of blood. This time, he could not get up for a long time. Chapter 283. At this moment, they have no choice but to believe that the person who just made a move was actually this child. A 4 or 5-year-old child actually easily knocked down more than a dozen strong men with high cultivation bases. Where did this monster come from? Og, puff. Cough, cough, cough. Just as everyone is in absolute silence from the shock, a violent cough comes from the ground. Everyone's line of sight stiffly turns over. Then, they're completely dumbfounded. God! What did they just see? That middle-aged man actually really came back to life. The entire clinic falls into a deathly silence. Soon after, they hear the middle-aged man cough again, and slowly sits up. That pair of eyes, still dripping with dark red blood tears, just happens to meet the beautiful woman's eyes. Ah! A terrified scream pierces through the sky. The beautiful woman, who was just crying pitifully, now sits down on the ground in fear. Her face is deathly pale, and her body is trembling like a sieve. Ghost! Ghost! Don't come over, don't come over. I didn't mean to kill you, don't come looking for me. The middle-aged man still hasn't come back to his senses, and his first reaction when he sees the beautiful woman is to call out, Jeannie? What happened to you? He didn't expect that in return, the beautiful woman would tremble even more in fear. At this time, the other people in the clinic also come to their senses. He came back to life. He really came back to life. God! It turns out that the Enchantress of Medicine really has the ability to bring people back from the dead. This is the first time I've seen such godly medical skills. The Enchantress of Medicine really deserves to be called the #1 genius doctor in Tianyuan City. What Tianyuan City, such magical medical skills are simply unheard of, unseen. It should be said that she's #1 in the Yanwu stage. Everyone's discussion makes Dang Hongfeng's smug expression freeze in place. He looks at the middle-aged man who has already climbed up from the ground, and then looks at Mayan, who is looking at him with a smile that isn't a smile. His complexion can be said to be extremely unsightly. Mayan claps her hands, and leisurely says, "Dr. Deng, you just said that the Enchantress of Medicine only has this level. May I ask what level it is?" As she spoke, she clenched her left hand into a fist and gently tapped the palm of her right hand. With a lazy smile, she said, "Actually, I would like to ask Dr. Deng, what kind of medical skill is a doctor who can't even tell whether a person is dead or alive?" Pfft, someone couldn't help but laugh out loud. Deng Hongfeng couldn't bear it any longer. He roars, "Jun Mayan, don't go too far. Don't forget, I'm a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. How can a woman like you judge me?" Hee, Xian Medical Pavilion senior doctor can't even diagnose whether a person is dead or alive. It looks like this doctor rating assessment issued by Xian Medical Pavilion isn't very convincing. As soon as these words came out, the clinic fell silent for a moment. Then, a burst of low whispers broke out. Deng Hongfeng's expression became uglier and uglier. That's because from the crowd's discussion, he really hears things like, "It seems that Xian Medical Pavilion is indeed unfair. In fact, godly Dr. Qian Qing doesn't have such magical medical skills as the Enchantress of Medicine. Do you still remember Dr. Fong from back then?" Because they opposed Xian Medical Pavilion's overbearingness, their whole family was exterminated. In addition to hatred and madness, there was also a faint sense of panic in his heart. Master had him come over to develop Xian Medical Pavilion's forces. Chapter 284. Jun Mayan doesn't care about him. Instead, she looks at that beautiful woman. "Oh, that's right, was it you who just said that my clinic treated someone to death?" The beautiful woman meets Mayan's pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes, and her whole body quivers. Repeatedly shaking her head, she says, "No, no, no. I made a mistake. This commoner woman was just anxious about my husband." Hee. Anxious about your husband? The corners of Mayan's mouth slightly curve up, but why did I just hear you say that you didn't mean to harm him? Moreover, if you really were anxious about your husband, then when you saw him come back to life, your first reaction wasn't to be wild with joy, but to fall to the ground in fright? Saying that, Mayan also pouts at Dr. Yu. "You see, the person you accused of killing your husband, when he saw your husband come back to life, he didn't feel afraid at all. Instead, he was very happy." Being called out, Dr. Yu is simply overwhelmed by the favor. He promptly bows deeply towards Mayan, and when he raises his head, the rims of his eyes are red. "Many thanks to Miss for saving me." Mayan smiles at him, but doesn't say anything. Hearing Mayan's question, the middle-aged man is already looking at the beautiful woman with a sharp gaze. The beautiful woman can't help but tremble from head to toe. I didn't. I just didn't think that my husband would still be alive. So happy." Halfway through her words, a hand suddenly clutches her throat. The middle-aged man coldly says, "No wonder when I stood up, I felt pain in my neck. That was when you attacked me, wasn't it? You vicious woman, I've been good to you, how could you treat me like this?" Saying that, the 5 fingers suddenly tighten. The beautiful woman's eyes widen in horror, and she can't bear it anymore. She lets out a hoarse begging for mercy. No, it wasn't me, it was the people from the Hongfu Medical Center who made me kill you in the Junji Medical Center, and then frame them, people from the Hongfu Medical Center. Who? The beautiful woman looks towards Deng Hongfeng with tears in her eyes. But she suddenly feels a sharp pain in her head, and then she completely loses her breath. The one who did it wasn't the middle-aged man, but a guard beside Deng Hongfeng. That guard looks very ordinary, but when he made his move just now, he exudes a frightening cultivation aura. This aura was so terrifying that everyone present felt a chill down their spines and broke out in a cold sweat. After returning to Deng Hongfeng's side, he sneered and said, "A vicious woman dares to frame a senior doctor? She must be tired of living. And you?" He looks at Mayan, his eyes are so cold that they can freeze people. "Keep your mouth clean for me. The Grand Xian Medical Pavilion isn't something that a silly little girl like you can provoke." When Xiaobao heard that someone was insulting his mother, his eyes flashed with coldness, and he took a step forward to attack. However, Mu Yan quickly pressed down on his shoulder. This guard's aura was very dangerous. Although her cultivation is not as good as hers, Mayan has an inexplicable intuition of danger. Especially when he was hiding behind Deng Hongfeng just now, and even she did not notice him. She herself might not be afraid to make a move, but the innocent patients of Junji Medical Center might suffer a calamity. Deng Hongfeng's eyes lit up when he saw the guard's action. "Guardianly, you're finally willing to help." He was clearly a guard, but Deng Hongfeng was extremely respectful towards him. Chapter 285. His cold gaze sweeps over Deng Hongfeng, and finally falls on Mayan. "If you want to blame someone, blame this woman. She actually dared to insult Xian Medical Pavilion. Today, seeing that you're already a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion, I won't take your life, I'll just give you a little lesson." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure disappeared from where he was like a flash of lightning. By the time everyone comes to their senses, a palm wrapped in powerful internal force is already ruthlessly swatting down on Mayan. This palm isn't just rolling and vigorous internal force, it's also boundless. What's even more frightening is the sinister air that's being emitted from it. Even the people who are a little closer, when they come into contact with that little bit of sinister air, they feel their chi churning, their skin burning like it's on fire. Everyone in the Junji Medical Center, including Old Tao and the others, all show frightened and worried expressions. Some people can't help but shout, "Be careful, Enchantress of Medicine." Even Xiaobao feels that curling internal force heat wave, and feels a suffocating sense of oppression. His cold and handsome little face tightens in a split second. However, before he could get ready for battle, his collar is pulled, and he's directly pulled behind him. A fair, jade-like palm slowly pushes out. Under that wave-like sinister internal force, this pair of jade hands seems like they could be destroyed at any time. But in the next moment, a miraculous scene happens. In the air, the white jade palms suddenly flip and overlap, layers upon layers of afterimages, like layers of Tianshan snow lotuses blooming. Then, there's clearly no strings being plucked. Everyone's ears seem to hear a melodious and sweet-sounding sound of a zither. Following the sound of the zither, the Black Indian internal force seems to have encountered its nemesis. It's quickly swallowed up. Those that aren't swallowed also flee in panic like stray dogs. A trace of shock finally appears on the face of the guard, who has always been aloof. Just then, the two hands meet. Clang! This is the droning sound of a zither. Bang! This is the collision of internal force when the two palms collide. The two people simultaneously retreat. Mayan takes 3 steps back. That protectorly takes 7 steps back. When he finally stabilizes his figure, his complexion turns green and white, so unsightly that it could drip ink. His eyes are fixed on Mu Yen, almost unable to control his tone and emotions. Just who are you? She was obviously a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old, but she was actually able to exchange blows with him. Didn't that mean he had to have a Xiantian cultivation? No, it was definitely not as simple as a Xiantian master. But how was that possible? Before Mayan can answer, Deng Hongfeng rushes to yell and shout, "This smelly woman is called Jun Mayan." Relying on her little medical skills, she completely doesn't put our Xian medical pavilion in her eyes. She even insults Master with her words. During this period of time, Deng Hongfeng had been suppressed by Mu Yen to the point of being too aggrieved. He had never felt so aggrieved before. He thought of all kinds of methods to kill Mayan, but there was nothing he could do. Even the mercenaries didn't come back. Of course, he knew how powerful Protector Li was, but who was Protector Li? He was one of his master's most trusted aides. How could he order them around? He didn't even dare to use words to bluff them. It was because Protector Li was too terrifying. His entire body seemed to be covered in poison, and if one were to get close to him and anger him, their lives would be in danger. But he didn't expect that today. That idiot Jun Mayan would actually anger Protector Li. Wouldn't that be courting death? Chapter 286. Protector Li, you must teach him a good lesson today. Deng Hongfeng firmly believes that after listening to his words, Protector Li wouldn't be able to stop himself from making his move again. This time, it would take Mayan's life. Unexpectedly, Protector Li's complexion only becomes even more unsightly after listening to his words. Then without saying a word, he turns around and leaves. Kill Mayan. Are you kidding me? Right now, let alone killing someone, it's almost impossible for him to even move. There's a burst of fiery pain in his chest. If he doesn't leave immediately, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from spitting out a mouthful of blood. Protector Li's eyes are filled with resentment and anger. His figure quickly disappears without a trace like lightning. As for that idiot Deng Hongfeng, if he dies, then he dies. What's the big deal? In any case, Master has a lot of apprentices. Deng Hongfeng is struck dumb. Protector Li, Protector Li. Why are you leaving? He shouts, wanting to follow him out. But before he could step out of the door, his feet stagger, and he falls flat on his face. Then he hears Mayan's chuckling voice, Deng Hongfeng, where do you think this place is? You can come and go as you please. Deng Hongfeng's fall isn't light. It's quite a while before he can raise his head, shaking it. But he finds out that the patients of the Junji Medical Center have already been driven out. The only ones left are the people from the Ink camp, his subordinates, and Deputy General Liu's group. Everyone is hung upside down and tied up. The people from the Ink camp are grinning as they take off their clothes. Deng Hongfeng shudders, his voice sharp and thin. Jun Mayan, what do you want to do? I'm an elder of the Xian Medical Pavilion, I'm the genius doctor's apprentice, what do you dare to do to me? Bang! A foot steps on his head, directly pushing him into the ground. Paw! A thick spit is spat on his face. The Ink camp's Guan Hu picks his teeth and says sloppily, what are you being so noisy for? Lousy's ears are about to go deaf from your noise. Do you believe that I won't step on your eggs if you keep making noise? You lowly slave, you actually dare to, Before Deng Hongfeng could finish his words, there's really a foot that directly steps on his unspeakable position. With a cracking sound, everyone seemed to have heard the sound of eggs breaking. Everyone, including old Tao who is watching from the sidelines, as well as Guan Hu who just spoke, have goosebumps on their bodies. He kept feeling a chill in his crotch. Looking at Chang Yu who had just moved his leg, both of them shuddered. That's because Chang Yu is the first to break through in the Ink camp, and he's also the first to choose to be loyal to Xiao Bao. Therefore, his image had always been more mature, prudent, and somewhat gentle. But he didn't expect that his opponent would be such a ruthless person. Chang Yu retracted his leg, but acted as if nothing had happened. He said indifferently, "The scene is rather bloody. Does Miss want to take the young master away?" Everyone looks at Mayan and Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao clenches Mu Yan's fingers. Mu Yan smiled faintly and said, "All right. I'll leave the rest to you. I don't need any confessions or promises, as long as he doesn't die too easily." Deng Hongfeng, who was in so much pain from his balls being crushed, suddenly widened his eyes, which were filled with fear and pleading. Unfortunately, no one here will pay attention to him. Just as Mu Yan is about to turn around, she pauses. She faintly looks at Deng Hongfeng for a moment, then says, "Go and call Big Brother. I believe that he would also want to see this man's end." Chapter 287. Mu Yan leads Xiao Bao back to the room. As soon as they entered, Xiao Bao threw himself into her arms and hugged her thigh tightly. She raised her head, her blue eyes wide open, but the rims of her eyes were red. She didn't say a word, but her pink lips were trembling as if she was wronged and afraid. Mayan's heart softens all of a sudden. She quickly crouches down and takes him into her arms. Her voice is unbelievably soft, "Baby, don't be afraid. Enchanting only suffered a very light injury. It will be fine after a simple treatment. If you don't believe me, use your Xian Qi to check it out. Mother really doesn't feel uncomfortable at all, and she won't get sick." Her small hand grasps Mayan's wrist, but her palm is cold. One could imagine how scared and worried he was just now. Internal force surges in and finds that Mayan's injury is really light. Only then does the little body's taut nerves suddenly relax. However, Xiao Bao is still clutching Mayan's clothes, his slightly trembling body is tightly buried in her bosom. His low voice is full of complaint and grievance. Xiao Bao doesn't want Enchanting to get hurt, not even a light injury. "Okay, I will protect myself in the future. Xiao Bao, treat mother's injuries." The corner of Mu Yan's mouth curls up as she carries Xiao Bao to the table. With a wave of his finger, the Tian Mo Qin appears on his seat. Little Treasure placed his little hand on it. His movements were somewhat clumsy, but his expression was unusually serious. With the sound of the music, the dried-up and burning sea of qi slowly seemed to be moistened by a sweet spring. The smile in Mayan's eyes is full of tenderness. No matter how many people were around her, Xiao Bao was always the first to notice that something was wrong with her body. But what surprised her was, even old Tao did not notice it, but Chang Yu actually discovered it. It seemed that Chang Yu's innate talent might be even higher than she had expected. There was also the protector Li that Deng Hongfeng mentioned. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, a cold light flickering in them. That person's profound qi was filled with a sinister aura that could corrode flesh and blood. If she remembered correctly, this should be a poison man that Qian Qing had spent dozens of years cultivating. I really didn't expect it to come knocking on my door so soon. The sound of the zither stops, and Mu Yan slowly exhales. Xiao Bao lifts his small face and looks at Mu Yan with concern. Mayan takes out a bottle of draft and gulps it down. Soon after, she reveals a smile. "Thank you, Xiao Bao. Enchanting has already recovered." Little Treasure's eyes shone brightly, and there was an imperceptible joy in his eyes. However, because he was treating him, he had consumed too much of his profound qi, so Xiao Bao immediately felt sleepy. Her little head nodded, and her thick black eyelashes drooped. Mu Yan's heart ached as she held him in her arms and placed him on the bed. Then, she turned around and left the room. His figure was like a phantom, silently disappearing into the night. Protector Lee, what's wrong with you? Where's Dr. Dang? Get lost. The door slammed shut, and he couldn't hold back his second mouthful of blood. Protector Lee's eyes are filled with haze and ruthlessness, his mouth muttering that name, June Mayan. June Mayan. Suddenly, Guardian Lee's expression froze and he frowned slightly. Wait a minute. Why did he find the name June Mayan somewhat familiar? Moreover, he felt as if he had seen the girl's incomparably charming face somewhere before. As Protector Lee pondered, he clutched his chest and went to the cabinet. He took out a bottle of draft and poured it into his mouth. The draft slowly took effect, and it began to repair the damage to his meridians and internal organs. Chapter 288. With one hand on his abdomen, he looks down and sees that his clothes are stained with the blood that he himself spat out. Ever since he was trained by the Lord into a poison man and advanced to the pre-celestial stage. When has he ever suffered such humiliation? June Mayan is just a woman, how could she have such great ability? Suddenly, Protector Lee's eyes widen, his eyes filled with shock. He remembers. It's that girl, that June Mayan. That woman who accidentally ran into the master, sought medical advice from the master, and was finally diagnosed as pregnant. But how is this possible? Shouldn't that girl who got pregnant out of wedlock already be dead? The fetus in her belly should have already been dug out by Princess Chinchue. At that time, Princess Chinchue gave the master great benefits for the sake of this fetus. It's also because of these benefits that the master was able to train them into invincible poison men. But why is this person still alive, and how could she become so powerful? The more Protector Lee thinks, the more alarmed he is. Then a delicate and handsome little face unconsciously flashes through his mind. A child of only 4 or 5 years old, and he can kill a profound stage practitioner at will. Ho! He sucks in a mouthful of cold air, his body trembling because of extreme excitement. Don't tell me that child is that immortal fetus from that time. Yes, the timing is right, such talent and innate bone structure are also right. Ha, the immortal fetus and the immortal mother, if I tell the Lord will definitely reward me. June Mayan, just wait for you to die without a burial. Your flesh and blood will become our best tonic, and even your son will become the elixir for the master to cross the tribulation and ascend. Ha. Thinking of this, Protector Lee couldn't bear it anymore. He doesn't even care about the injuries on his body. He casually tidies himself up, and wants to rush to Jingqing country overnight to report this shocking secret to Qianqing. However, Protector Lee hasn't reached the door. The door of the room is suddenly slowly pushed open from the outside. Because of the poor lighting inside and outside, Protector Lee can't clearly see the figures of the people outside. He only faintly feels that the surrounding air is filled with a kind of powerful pressure that almost suffocates him. Who are you people? He can only see that there are 2 people standing outside, and they are 2 tall and terrifying men. Especially the one in front. Even though Protector Lee couldn't see his face clearly, he could still feel the pressure emanating from his body. It was a pressure that made everything in the world submit to him. Just now, you said that you wanted someone to die a horrible death. The man's voice was deep and magnetic, indescribably sexy and majestic. But when Protector Lee heard it, he didn't know why, but his body couldn't help but tremble. He was a mid-level Xiantian. Who in the world could make him tremble? You were sent by June Mayan. Protector Lee gritted his teeth and roared in a threatening manner. What? She's afraid that I'll know the identity of her and her bastard, so she wants to kill me. I'm telling you, you better not push me too far, otherwise. Before he could finish, a pair of hands clasped his neck. The hands were dry and cold. When he grabbed his neck, it was as if a piece of 1,000-year-old ice had blocked his windpipe. Protector Lee's eyes widened in horror and his legs kicked wildly. The man's cold voice rang in her ears. Who are you calling a bastard? Chapter 289. However, that man is certainly not simple. After all, that bastard has an immortal physique. Ha! If a living immortal physique is refined into an elixir, it can let my master ascend in an instant. Say, if this news were to spread, who in the Yenwu continent wouldn't want this mother and son? Would they still have a place to stay in the future? As he says these words, Protector Lee feels the man's mood fluctuate. This is the time. An ominous glint flashes in his eyes, and his hands suddenly move. A thick black smoke suddenly sprays out. The smoke curls up, touching the door frame, the floor, and the furniture. The room unexpectedly emits a terrible sizzling sound. Just by being touched by this smoke, the furniture in the room actually starts to melt. It's enough to imagine how poisonous this smoke is. Protector Lee feels the tight grip on his neck loosen, and he immediately takes a step back. He laughs heartily. How is it? The bone-rotting powder that Master personally refined, it tastes pretty good. Ha 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 ha, this is a poison that can even corrode a pre-celestial expert's body. Ah. The complacent laughter suddenly turned into a terrified and shrill scream. Protector Lee's entire body flies out uncontrollably, and he heavily hits the wall. But he doesn't fall after hitting the wall, instead, he firmly sticks to it. That's because there are countless long steel nails on his limbs, shoulders, and body. Blood gurgles down along the steel nails, quickly drenching his clothes. The intense pain makes Protector Lee wish he could immediately faint. Soon after, he sees two figures slowly coming out from the thick smoke. It's clearly a corrosive smoke, but when it touches those two people, there's not even the slightest reaction. Even as the two people walk step by step, the thick smoke seems to fear and submit, automatically moving to the sides. And Protector Lee finally sees the appearance of the man in the lead. It's a handsome face that could make all the women in the world go crazy. The tall figure, every inch of it has a perfect curve, and there's a power that can make people's blood boil. But the most shocking thing isn't his appearance, but his temperament. Graceful, noble, disdainful, a ruler descending upon the world. When did such a man appear in the Yenwu continent? Why has he never seen him before? You, who are you? Why, want to kill me? Do you know who I am? If you kill me, my master won't let you off. Swish. A cold light flashed, and Protector Lee felt a sharp pain in his mouth and tongue. Then, he could no longer make a sound. Then, he saw the man lift his eyes and look at him. His only glance was extremely cold, as if he was looking at a disgusting ant. For hurting her, you don't even deserve to die. Taking advantage of the night, Mu Yen quickly arrives at Enforcer Lee's residence. But as soon as she entered the door, she felt that something was wrong. A pungent stench assaulted his nostrils. It was accompanied by the man's low, broken moans. His moans were filled with pain and despair, but he just couldn't break free. He pushed open Protector Lee's door. Even with Mu Yen's calmness, she was still somewhat unable to recover from the scene in front of her. What the hell was that meatball nailed to the wall? Judging from his aura, it seemed to be Protector Lee. But how did Guardian Lee turn into such a ghostly state? Chapter 290. This is simply more painful than death, isn't it? Her own enmity was inexplicably avenged. Although she also very much hopes that this henchman of Qian Qing's will die without a burial site. But, in the end, who was it that made the first move? Mayan slightly knits her brows, and slowly walks 2 steps inside the room. Suddenly, a strange breath rushes into the tip of her nose, making her breath slightly sluggish. However, she quickly returns to normal, and leaves with a puzzled look on her face. After Mayan has left, two figures appear. Han Yi couldn't help but ask softly, Jun Shang, are you not going to meet with Miss Mayan? Humph. The man at his side turns his head, his expression as cold and unapproachable as ever. But within those blue eyes, there's a hint of gnashing teeth resentment. Not meeting. Han Yi can't help but secretly roll his eyes. Say you won't meet, but don't be so worried, unable to sit or stand still. You even do this kind of thing like peeping. Say you won't meet, but don't go crazy with jealousy when you see Miss Mayan being intimate with a man. Say you won't meet, but don't run over to avenge Miss Mayan when you see her injured. Qi Yan Imperial Palace. Cough, cough, cough. Violent coughing sounds, and it's accompanied by a pungent smell of medicine, filling the room. As soon as Liu Beiyu hears the coughing, he immediately drops his paintbrush and rushes over. He helps the person on the bed up, his face full of concern. Big brother, how are you? Are you all right? The youth on the bed shakes his head, revealing a weak smile as he looks up at Liu Beiyu. He sees that the youth has a handsome face, but it's extremely pale. His pair of beautiful eyes seem to be covered with a layer of white nebula, making him look like a blind person who can't focus. Especially when he coughs, this white nebula becomes even heavier. Liu Beiyu looks at the youth's deathly pale face, the sweat on his forehead, and the increasingly deep white nebula in his eyes. His eyes are full of worry. Big brother, isn't your illness getting worse? Listen to me, come with me to see my master, okay? Maybe my master can cure you. Cough, cough. The youth coughs twice, then he shakes his head with a wry smile. You said it yourself, your master is an apothecary, not a doctor. My illness can't be cured by medicine. Even the divine Dr. Qian Qing had no way to cure it, so how could anyone else be able to cure it? Why go through the trouble of making this trip? Liu Beiyu wants to refute that his master is omnipotent. But when he thought about it, he realized that he had never seen his master's medical skills other than sewing chicken legs. Ah pooey, sewing his legs, it seemed like he had never seen any other medical skills. If Big Brother painstakingly went there but couldn't cure it in the end, Big Brother would definitely be very sad. Moreover, the problem was that he didn't know where his master was. Let's not talk about this. Big brother, look at the painting I just drew. What do you think? You've made great progress, haven't you? Since there's no solution, Liu Beiyu simply changes the subject. You see, this is Imperial Father's Imperial bodyguard. His body is the most satisfactory of all my works. Only to see Liu Beiyu spread out the drawing paper, impressively drawing a man who is almost completely naked from head to toe, only using vine leaves to cover his important parts. The man was tall and sturdy, with muscles all over his body. But Liu Beiyu posed it in a gentle and beautiful posture. That appearance is really unspeakably strange. Chapter 291. Liu Beiyu is extremely satisfied with his masterpiece. He thought to himself, Master is so smart, telling me to draw a tall and sturdy man, not a beautiful woman. Sure enough, his painting skills had improved by leaps and bounds. When he saw his master, he would definitely let his master take a good look at him and praise him. When the young man on the bed saw the painting, he could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. At this moment, a young eunuch hurriedly ran in. When he saw the two of them, he kowtowed and said, Your First Highness, Your Third Highness, I have something to report. What is it? It's news from Tianyuan City. The little eunuch raised his head, his face full of excitement and agitation. It's said that a famous doctor has appeared over there. He can cure the terminal stage of intestinal ulcer, and can even bring the dead back to life. Some even said that her medical skills were better than miracle Dr. Qian's. What doctor? How could he be more powerful than Dr. Qian? Liu Beiyu's eyes also brighten. What's his name? What's his background? Since it's in the territory of my Qi Yan country, just invite someone to the imperial palace to diagnose Big Brother's illness. This. The young eunuch showed a hint of hesitation. I heard that the miracle doctor has a very strange temper. He only sees a few patients a day and doesn't pay anyone's bills. I'm afraid it won't be easy to invite him. Liu Beiyu's brows wrinkled all of a sudden. What the hell? How dare you ignore the summons of our imperial palace? Tell me, where did he come from? Could it be someone from Xian Medical Pavilion? Does it have anything to do with Qian Qing? The little eunuch shook his head. This doctor, the people of Tianyuan City gave her a nickname, Enchantress of Medicine, meaning, charming ghosts and gods, doctor in charge of heaven's will. This was not only because of the doctor's miraculous medical skills, but also because she was an extremely beautiful young lady. Girl. Liu Beiyu's eyes suddenly widen. As if he had thought of something seemed to be burning in his eyes. What's her name? The Enchantress is called June. June Mayan. Bang! Liu Beiyu stumbles and awkwardly falls to the ground. Third brother. The young man on the bed screamed and wanted to reach out to support him. He sees Liu Beiyu quickly climb up, his face still a little red from the fall, blooming with an excited smile. Big brother, it's Master. The Enchantress Mayan is the master that I told you about. I told you that master would definitely be able to cure you. Just you wait, I'll go to Tianyuan City now and invite master over to treat you. Believe me, master is omnipotent. She will definitely be able to cure your illness. Tianyuan City, Junji Medical Center. Get out of the way. Don't block the way. Let my family's palace, let my family's young master pass. The crowd outside the clinic was suddenly pushed aside by a few muscular men who were dressed similarly. Each of these brawny men was at least at the mystic stage. Their eyes were sharp and their auras were threatening. One look and you could tell that they were not to be trifled with. The crowd retreated to the sides, but there was worry on their faces. Why did someone come to cause trouble again? Could it be that the people of Xian Medical Pavilion want to lay their hands on the Enchantress of Medicine? This is going too far. The Junji Medical Center clearly didn't do anything wrong, but they keep coming over to make trouble again and again. The commotion here also alarmed the Ink camp guards inside the medical center. They've already been informed that they might be facing the counterattack of Xian Medical Pavilion. Chapter 292. Immediately, their eyes lit up with excitement. Damn, this group of grandsons from Xian Medical Pavilion finally have the guts to come and cause trouble. I've been waiting for them for so long that I'm going to rot. That's right. If we don't fight, we have to be drilled every day. It's a living hell. Brothers, the fat sheep has delivered themselves to us. Beat them to death. However, don't beat him to death, lest you get bored later on. Liu Beiyu has just pushed aside his bodyguards, opening his mouth to say, "Who are you people, daring to block my way? Quickly get out of the way, I want to find my master." Before he could finish saying, "Master," a huge fist was already flying towards his face. Ah! A scream. Then came the sounds of fighting. In just a short span of a few dozen breaths, Liu Beiyu and the guards he brought are already lying on the ground. All of them had bruised noses and swollen faces. They exhaled more than they inhaled, and they couldn't even get up. Guanhu directly sits on Liu Beiyu's body and sneers, "Speak, who sent you? What do you want to do running to our Junji Medical Center?" Liu Beiyu ruthlessly glares at Guanhu, gnashing his teeth, You bunch of bastards. How dare you treat me like this? My master and senior brother won't let you off. I'm so scared. Guanhu picked his ear. Why don't you tell me, what are the names of your master and senior brother? Let's see if I'm scared or not. Ha ha ha. The surrounding people of the ink camp burst into laughter. Just as he was laughing, he heard a commotion in the crowd. Someone shouted, "It's the Enchantress of Medicine, the Enchantress and young master are back." Then, a girl in green with a face as white as snow slowly walked over, holding the hand of a cute child. The moment he saw the two, Liu Beiyu's eyes reddened all of a sudden, and he yells at the top of his lungs, "Master, little brother, help ah!" Whoosh! Everyone seemed to hear the sound of leaves blowing past their ears. Guan Hu stiffens. He turns his head and woodenly looks at Liu Beiyu. Who are you calling master? Right at this moment, Xiaobao had already struggled free of Mu Yan's hand and slowly walked over to him. His gaze slowly moves up from Liu Beiyu's tearful face, falling on Guan Hu's body that is already so stiff that he can't move. Young master, you? Xiaobao slightly narrowed his eyes and said in his unique childish voice, "What do you want to do to my stupid junior brother?" Hearing his words, the tears in Liu Beiyu's eyes suddenly gushes out. "Little senior brother, you must uphold justice for me." Xiaobao turned his head away with a look of disgust on his face and spat out the word, "Stupid." However, her small hand still stretched out, grabbed Guan Hu's collar, and directly threw him out. Throughout the whole process, Mu Yan stood on the side with a smile on her face, a peculiar light circulating in her eyes. Xiaobao looked cold. But once he treated them as one of his own, he would protect them. For example, this stupid prince who had only been her disciple for 3 days and hadn't even learned half a move from her. Just because Liu Beiyu calls him little senior brother and trusts him wholeheartedly. Young Miss. The people of the ink camp tremble with fear and trepidation as they line up in front of Mu Yan. Shrinking their heads, they have a pitiful appearance. "We really didn't know that this was your disciple. The main thing is, the miss and the little master are clearly so valiant." Chapter 293. Although Liu Beiyu and his guards have been beaten miserably, they're still only injured. In Mayan's hands, they're easily cured. Lowering his head and drinking a bowl of medicine, Liu Beiyu frowns. Just as he puts the bowl down, he sees a row of ink camp brawny men standing in front of his bed. Each and every one of them has a fiendish look, as if they're itching to skin him and dismember him. What are you guys doing?" Liu Beiyu's voice unconsciously trembles. He's really scared from the beating just now. Just as he's bewildered, he hears the man who just gave him the first punch say in a gruff voice, "Speak, how are you going to punish us?" "Aw. What aw? If you don't punish us, the little master will definitely peel off a layer of our skin later." Seeing Liu Beiyu's stupefied look, Guan Hu gets even angrier. He looks at him from head to toe, sizing him up from left to right. The more he looks, the more upset he gets. With this weak chicken appearance, it would be strange if he could think that this person is the Mrs. Apprentice. You can't blame them for getting beaten up. Are you really the Mrs. Apprentice? The disdain in his tone is almost overflowing. As soon as Liu Beiyu hears this, he immediately explodes. "Of course I'm Master's apprentice." This group of people can question his identity as a prince, but they can't question his relationship with his master and little brother. Guan Hu curls his lips and says, "With your weak chicken appearance, which part of you looks like the Mrs. Apprentice? Which part of you looks like the little master's apprentice?" Who would have thought that Liu Beiyu wouldn't feel the slightest bit ashamed or annoyed at being called a weak chicken? On the contrary, he's bold and confident. "I didn't learn martial arts from master. What does my weakness have to do with whether I'm master's apprentice or not? Not martial arts. Then what is it? Is it medicine?" Liu Beiyu has an inscrutable look on his face as he shakes his head. "It's also not medicine. Is it alchemy?" He continues to shake his head. This time, the people of the ink camp are really curious. In the end, what did you learn from the miss? Liu Beiyu shows a mysterious smile, then he has someone bring over a package from the side. He takes out a mounted scroll from inside. As the scroll slowly unfurls, the rough men of the ink camp see the vivid and lifelike drawing on it, and then everyone is petrified. This, what is this? Guanhu used his coarse and wild voice, like a duck's quack, to forcibly let out a eunuch's shrill cry. The other people from the ink camp are also dumbstruck, their expressions lifeless. This scene was simply too hard to accept. In the painting was a 7-foot-tall man like them, but he was wearing light muslin and had a drunken and enchanting posture. The scene was still very beautiful. The 7-foot-tall man's face was hazy, but his posture was the perfect combination of gentleness and strength. The entire picture was vivid and lifelike, as if it was about to leap out of the paper. It was so goddamn lifelike. Guanhu looked sluggishly at Liu Beiyu. You said you learned it from Miss, that's it. Liu Beiyu's face was full of admiration and awe. Master's painting skills are much better than mine. Initially, when he gave me several paintings of beauties for my personal bodyguards, each one seemed to have a soul. Although I've been diligently practicing during this time, I still couldn't learn even 1/10 of Master's skill. Suddenly, his voice pauses. His gaze looks up and down at Guanhu and the others, the light in his eyes getting brighter and brighter. Chapter 294. There's an ominous premonition in his heart, it's like a runaway wild horse. Sure enough, the next moment, Liu Beiyu claps his hands and says excitedly, "Didn't you just say that you want me to punish you? There's no need for punishment, each of you will be my model for a day. Just like my guards, take off your clothes and pose in all kinds of poses. I promise, it'll be very easy. I draw very fast." Guanhu feels cold sweat dripping down from his head. He takes a step back, then another. Still not necessary, we'd better obediently accept the miss and the little master's punishment. Saying that, the group of people look at Liu Beiyu like they've seen a ghost. They break into a run. Who knew that at this time, Mayan's clear and melodious voice could be heard from behind? I actually think that this punishment method is pretty good. Crack! Guanhu's figure suddenly freezes, the fine and dense cold sweat turns into a waterfall of sweat. He struggles on his deathbed. "Little master, we are willing to accept the hellish training." Right. We're willing to accept the hellish training. Xiao Bao expressionlessly looks at them, then he coldly says, "If Nyangqin says it's not bad, then it's not bad." Ow, don't aw. Help. Amidst ghostly wails and wolf-like howls, the 7 or 8 people from the ink camp who had bullied Liu Beiyu and his guards are all stripped of their clothes. Only some enchanting ornaments are left to cover the important parts of their bodies. There's a pink scarf. There's a red maple leaf. There's even a shell inlaid with pearls, specifically covering the 3 key points. Yan Haotian violently suppresses Guanhu and the others who want to resist. Turning around, he finds Feng Haitang standing by Mayan's side, staring fixedly at this scene. His eyes, which had always been cold and indifferent, surged with an amused smile. Just like a child, curious and naive. Yan Haotian hasn't seen such a lively Feng Haitang for a long time. Since their reunion, Yan Haotian has refused to be together with Feng Haitang, causing her reticent face to almost completely lose its smile. Seeing this scene, Yan Haotian should be gratified and happy. However, Feng Haitang's eyes were almost glued to those naked men. However, Yan Haotian could not help but feel a burst of anger in his heart. Almost without thinking, he stepped forward and covered Feng Haitang's eyes, dragging her out. Feng Haitang was stunned and wanted to resist. When she found out that the person pulling her was Yan Haotian, the corners of her mouth immediately hooked up into a gentle smile. She obediently followed him and left. Feng Haitang and Yan Haotian's departure did not affect the painting process in the slightest. Guanhu and the others looked as if they had lost their parents, wishing that they could bang their heads against the wall and die. If they had known that they would end up like this after beating up that weakling, they would definitely not have touched a single hair on that weakling's head. Seeing Yan Haotian leave, Guanhu rolled his eyes, wanting to sneak away. But before he could take a step, he hears Mayan's beaming voice, "I think Guanhu, you seem to be wearing too many clothes. Why don't you take off the black veil as well?" "Don't." Guanhu almost kneels down in front of this grand aunt. "I won't run. I won't run anymore." The other people in the ink camp who haven't been punished don't care about his wailing. One by one, they come over, laughing and giggling. They tear off the veil on his body, letting his majestic body be completely revealed before everyone. Mu Yan withdraws her astonished expression from a moment ago. Her admiring gaze sweeps over the scene, and finally falls on Changyu. It was indeed a scene so beautiful that it made one's soul tremble. Since she can become Liu Beiyu's master, her attainments in painting are naturally very high. Therefore, he knew better than anyone how shocked and touched the painter was by this seemingly shameful scene. Moreover, under such shock, she faintly comprehended something in her heart. Her cultivation that had been stagnant for a long time seemed to loosen. Mu Yan looks at this scene attentively, looking at Changyu, who is the fulcrum. However, he didn't notice that Changyu's slightly drooping eyelashes were trembling slightly. Chapter 296. He clearly knows that he doesn't have the qualifications to think about the person in front of him. However, his reason can't control his heart. He can't restrain his surging emotions. He doesn't know when it started, but Changyu's gaze can't help but fall on the Mississippi blazing, longing, loving, but also enduring. When the Mrs. eyes look at Guanhu and the others' naked bodies, he wishes that those shimmering eyes were looking at him. So, he does it. Without any sense of shame, he takes off his own clothes and becomes Liu Beiyu's model. He only hopes that that person's gaze can stay on him, even for a moment. When those watery peach blossom eyes lazily look over and fall on his bare skin, Changyu almost uses all the strength in his body to suppress the trembling of his body and the redness of his skin. The skin that person is looking at seems to be burning with fire. It's burning and sweet. This is his happiest moment. But it's also his only happy moment. He can't let the miss find out about his filthy feelings. Otherwise, he won't even have the chance to stay by the miss's side. Bang! A loud noise comes from the roof, and gravel falls down in a swirl. It's followed by a gust of wind mixed with endless anger. Not far away, Changyu and the others are directly thrown to the ground. The furniture in the room fell down with a clatter, covering them securely. Especially Changyu, he's directly knocked into the corner by that gust of wind. He spits out a mouthful of blood and faints. Nyangqin. Xiao Bao wakes up from this unforeseen event and wants to pull Mayan's hand. But without waiting for him to move, Mayan has already disappeared from where she stood. She's firmly imprisoned in an embrace. There's a blazing, almost explosive breath, and a man's hoarse and angry voice, ringing with a fury that can tear people apart. Jun Mayan, you're mine. Dust sprinkles down, making people unable to see the person's appearance clearly. They can only vaguely see a silhouette. But Xiao Bao is the first to react. Lecher. Let go of my Nyangqin. As he says that, his small figure rushes out like a cannonball, wanting to snatch Mayan back. However, the expected impact of fist and flesh doesn't happen. When the dust settled, the figure of the man and his mother, who were still in the same place, disappeared without a trace. Xiao Bao stood stiffly in place, his face as cold as frost, and his eyes spitting fire. Little Master, what happened? The ink camp guard on the side, still conscious, asks while trembling with fear, is it someone from Xian Medical Pavilion? Did they kidnap the young miss? Xiao Bao gritted his teeth and slowly shook his head. Taking a deep breath, he spat out a few words, Mother, I'm fine. The one who captured Nyangqin was that lecher, so of course Nyangqin would be fine. But that bastard actually took his mother away from him. Bastard. Rogue. Rascal. Don't think that Nyangqin is yours, don't think that I can't find you. I will definitely snatch my mother back. Mu Yan woke up to the rumbling of her stomach. His nose was filled with the fragrance of food. Rubbing her stomach, she sat up and looked around. He discovered that he was in a woman's bedroom that was decorated elegantly and gently. Although it was a bedroom, there were delicious dishes on the table not far away. Moreover, those dishes were still steaming hot. One look and it would make people's fingers move. Chapter 297. Mu Yan quickly jumps down from the bed. She casually washes her hands with the water in the basin on the side and wipes her face. He immediately sat at the table and began to eat heartily. His attitude was quite carefree. He didn't even care where he was right now. As soon as the food enters her mouth, Mayan suddenly widens her eyes, revealing an amazed expression. So delicious. It was several times more delicious than the expensive food she had eaten in big restaurants. He didn't know which chef made it, but he actually had such a high level of cooking. Oh, I really want to kidnap him back and make him cook for me. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Mu Yan stretches with satisfaction. He patted the non-existent dust off his clothes and got up to leave. When she opened the door, she realized that she was in a huge courtyard. There was the fragrance of flowers and the singing of birds in the yard. There's also a very large area that has been reclaimed as a ridge, with a lot of drafts and herbs planted on it. Every one of them is exceptionally rare, and there are even some that Mu Yan has never seen before. However, she did not intend to stay in this unfamiliar place for long. She was afraid that if she returned late, Xiao Bao would be worried. Where do you think you're going? A husky voice suddenly came from behind. Mayan's figure pauses, but she doesn't turn around. Instead, she leaps up. His body was like a nimble swallow as he leaped onto the wall of the courtyard. Once she crossed the wall, she would be out of the yard. Di Mingju didn't expect that this woman clearly knows that it's him, and even heard his voice. She didn't even turn around to look at him. Instead, he ran away. Did she really hate and despise him that much? When he thought of this, the anger in his heart surged along with the burning and tearing pain. In an instant, his eyes burned red. Mayan lightly steps on the wall with one foot, and her figure flies away like a bird. Suddenly, an irresistible force tugged at her waist. He actually forcefully dragged her back. Bang! The wooden door slammed against the doorframe, and the whole room seemed to tremble. Mu Yan's body is firmly pressed against the door, her hands pressed on both sides, unable to move even a little bit. The man looked down at her. The dim light in the room made the man's face look a little hazy. But no matter how hazy it was, it couldn't hide the man's almost perfect and handsome face. And that pair of eyes that seemed to be spitting fire were glaring at her, as if he couldn't wait to swallow her whole. Mayan swallows with difficulty. Di Mingju, calm down, calm down. Tell me, you want to run away from me? Why do you want to go back? The man bent down, his hot breath on her face. A faint blush quickly appeared on the young girl's fair skin, causing her already beautiful face to appear even more alluring. Di Mingju's eyes suddenly deepened. His gaze lingered on the plump lips that were bright red from a good sleep and a good meal. Her slightly upturned cherry lips were like the stamens of a flower waiting to be picked. Her faintly discernible pearly white teeth seemed to be waiting for him to lick and occupy them over and over again, declaring his ownership. Di Mingju, you, then, without waiting for the woman in his arms to finish, he did it. For so many days, he had been thinking about it, longing for it, but was unable to vent his desire. His scorching lips captured the girl's soft cherry lips. The domineering and invasive aura swallowed all of her breaths. The hand that was originally imprisoning Mayan's body pushes her into his embrace. Chapter 298. Mu Yan originally still wants to resist. However, her nose is filled with the man's mellow and sexy scent. Her breath is plundered, her lips and teeth are violated. For a moment, her mind is muddled, and her body feels like it's being set on fire. Her body is soft like it's turned into water. Only by relying on the man's imprisonment can she not collapse. But an absurd idea inexplicably emerges in her mind. This man, when they first met, his kissing skills were clearly very unskilled to death. In just a few short months, how did he train? He actually kissed her until she was confused and intoxicated. She doesn't know how much time has passed. Di Mingju reluctantly releases those already red and swollen lips, and lightly pecks a few times on the moist corner of her lips. These days, have you missed Ben Jun? The man's dark and husky voice is filled with strong lust, but also with infinite expectations. Ah. Mu Yan is silent for a moment. If she says that she basically hasn't missed him, will she be beaten to death? Sure enough, she just keeps silent. Di Mingju's face immediately turns as black as the bottom of a pot. His fingers firmly grip her chin, gnashing his teeth as he says, "You heartless woman." Mu Yan almost can't help but roll her eyes. Who are you to this Miss Ah? Why would I miss you? Di Mingju really wants to ruthlessly teach this person a lesson. But when he sees that snow-like complexion, and that pair of watery eyes that are as beautiful as the bright moon in the water, he can't bring himself to do it. This woman, she was born to be his nemesis. Mu Yan straightens her clothes that were a little messy from the passion just now. I've been out for long enough, I should go back. Di Mingju's eyes suddenly surge with a strong murderous intent and anger. Go back. What do you want to go back for? To fool around with those disheveled wild men. The man's voice is hoarse and gloomy, like he's suppressing a volcano that's about to erupt. There's even a trace of imperceptible grievance. Mu Yan also doesn't know why. Being stared at by such a pair of eyes, being questioned by such a voice, she unexpectedly feels a little guilty. Cough, how can you say that I'm fooling around? She laughs dryly. Don't you see that I'm teaching my apprentice how to paint? A man's robust and stalwart body is the most perfect work of art, worthy to be recorded. How can you think so dirty? The most perfect work of art. Is it worth being recorded? The man's good-looking eyebrows slowly raised. His eyebrows slanted into his temples, showing off the man's unparalleled domineering aura. But his actions make Mayan dumbfounded. The man grabbed her hand and pressed it against his chest. His husky voice carried a hint of sexiness. Then, does Mu Yan want to record my body? The front of the man's shirt had been ripped open, revealing his firm chest muscles. Mu Yan's little hand was grabbed and pressed against that skin. The scalding temperature almost made her scream and run away. She's obviously looking at those naked people from the ink camp with relish. There was nothing to be shy about. But looking at this man's body, and even using a brush to record it, Mayan's cheeks are so red that they could drip water. But Di Mingju has already grabbed her hand, unbuttoning his clothes. His coat slipped off, leaving his shirt open. This time, it wasn't just his sexy chest that was exposed, but also his perfect abs and waistline. The man's aura was disdainful, his figure tall and slender. Chapter 299. He looked skinny with clothes on, but muscular without clothes. She had a slim waist and long legs, coupled with a charming face. This man was simply a monster. Ming-ju grabs her hand and presses it against the waist of his trousers. His voice is unbelievably hoarse. Didn't Mayan say that she wanted a perfect record? Ben-jun's body has yet to be completely revealed to you. Really? What a monster. Mayan's whole body is red, and her nose is still a little itchy and hot. She didn't dare to look below the man's waist. He forced a smile and said, I don't need to paint. Did you prepare the food? Does it taste good? Which restaurant did you order it from? I'll also bring Xiaobao there next time. Ming-ju pauses. He narrows his eyes and looks at her with an unreadable expression, like, I like it. Mu Yan nodded without hesitation. It's much better than what my family's chef makes. It would be great if he could eat it every day. No matter how expensive it is, I'll accept it. She doesn't know why, but Mu Yan feels that after she says those words, the man seemed to be in a much better mood. The coldness in his eyes seemed to melt away. Your wish will come true. So which restaurant is it? If you don't tell me the name of the restaurant, how can I fulfill my wish? Or was it made by your private kitchen? Mu Yan licked her lips, her face drooling. Then can you lend it to me for 2 days? She had to let Xiaobao have a taste of such delicious food. The man lowered his head and moved closer to her, his hot breath landing on the lips she had just licked. The young girl's lips were still red and swollen, recounting how he had bullied her and how sweet it felt. And right now, Ming-ju only wants to bully him again. Mu Yan's breathing suddenly becomes a little chaotic, and she quickly takes a step back. Can't I borrow it for 2 days? How about 1 day? Ming-ju takes a deep breath, suppressing the surging desire in his heart. He slowly says, you can borrow it for a lifetime. Mu Yan's eyes widen. However, before her smile could surface in those pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes, the man said in a deep voice, but not now. Mayan thinks that Ming-ju is still reluctant to part with this private kitchen. So he smiled lazily and said, it doesn't matter. For the sake of delicious food, I can wait. Since there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. However, before he could take a step forward, the man's figure was like a phantom, suddenly teleporting in front of her. His eyes, which had just been tinged with a trace of warmth, were now gloomy again. Who said you can leave? Mu Yan raises an eyebrow. Then what do you want to do? You want me to warm your bed? However, with Jun Shang's looks, there should be many women who want to warm your bed. Jun. Mu Yan. Ming-ju is finally at the end of his patience, almost shouting out her name. You left without saying goodbye. You didn't even leave a single word. You disappeared without a trace right before my eyes. Now you're asking me what I want. Jun Mayan, don't you have a heart? Her arm was suddenly grabbed and the man's fiery eyes were right in front of her. His eyes were filled with crazy longing, hatred, and jealousy. It was fine if this woman left without saying goodbye. It was fine if she never missed him. She actually went to look at other men's naked bodies. Heaven knows that when Ming-ju saw that scene, the immortal force within his body almost couldn't be controlled and exploded, almost destroying the entire Yanwu continent. The dark cloud spirit flower only had a lifespan of 7 days from germination to flowering and wilting. Therefore, it was also known as the 7-day flower. However, this 7 days flower had not been cultivated for thousands of years. Not to mention the Yanwu continent, even in the Shuzhen continent, it's been a very, very long time since anyone was able to grow this dark cloud's spirit flower. Mu Yan looks at Di Mingju, not understanding why he would take out the seed of the dark cloud's spirit flower. Just as she was feeling suspicious, she heard the man's deep and magnetic voice, which was slightly husky and sexy, ring in her ears. As long as you can cultivate a dark cloud spirit flower, and use this jade box to collect the stamens, I will let you go. Saying that, he puts the 7 seeds together with the jade box into her hands. Chapter 301. Mayan's eyes widen. What do you want me to cultivate? Dark cloud spirit flower. Do you know that for thousands of years, no one has ever cultivated a dark cloud spirit flower? The way of nature. Mayan glares at the indifferent and calm man. Then why do you want me to cultivate a dark cloud spirit flower? No one has done it for thousands of years. What makes you think that I can do it? As soon as her voice falls, the man's hand wraps around her waist, bringing her into his embrace. If you can't do it, then you can only stay by Ben Jun's side forever. Don't even think about leaving. Mayan's brows wrinkle. Are you playing with me? Warm lips fall, and the man's next words inexplicably extinguish the anger that surges in her heart. I'm not playing with you, I believe. He lowers his head and presses it against her exquisite earlobe, as if he wants to hold it in his mouth, and as if he's only lightly touching it. Even if no one in the world can do it, I believe that my Mayan can do it. Low and hoarse words, but like a feather. It gently tugs at her heartstrings. Mayan steadies her mind, and inwardly says that she can't fall for the honey trap. She looks at the seeds of the dark cloud spirit flower in her hand, and thinks to herself, perhaps Di Mingju needs these seeds, so he's looking for her help. In any case, she still owes him a few favors. There's no harm in giving it a try. What's more, she's also quite interested in the legendary dark cloud's spirit flower. I can try to cultivate the dark cloud's spirit flower. Mayan looks up at Di Mingju, but I won't stay here. Xiao Bao is still waiting for me at home. You can come back after 7 days to get the dark cloud's spirit flower. Unexpectedly, Di Mingju shakes his head. You must stay here and cultivate the dark cloud's spirit flower. You can't be distracted by anything. Mayan frowns. Without me, Xiao Bao will have nightmares at night. Humph. Di Mingju coldly snorts, revealing a dissatisfied expression. A real man still needs to stick to people to sleep. What a scandal. Hearing him criticize her son, Mayan is unhappy. What real man? My son is only 4 years old. A 4-year-old child likes to nestle in his mother's arms and act spoiled. Isn't that normal? What's more, her baby was so obedient. Other than the fact that he liked to stick to her and sleep, he wasn't willful at all. When you were 4 years old, who knows where you were playing with mud? What right do you have to criticize my Xiao Bao? He actually dared to say that her son was behaving improperly. Di Mingju faintly looks over. When Ben Jun was 3 years old, he had already been thrown into the deep mountains to train alone for 3 months. Tell me, what right do you have to say that? Mu Yan is suddenly at a loss for words. However, his gaze was a little erratic. At the age of 3, he was thrown into the deep mountains to train alone. Although her baby also grew up deep in the mountains, it had been training alone for 3 months. She absolutely couldn't bear to see Xiao Bao suffer like this. Could it be that this man's parents were willing to let him go? How would a 3-year-old child struggle and suffer in the deep mountains to come out alive? An unfamiliar emotion welled up in her heart. She seemed to feel sorry for this seemingly invincible man in front of her. But he hears Di Mingju continue to say, Xiao Bao will be Ben Jun's son in the future, and also the future master of the polar domain. If he doesn't even have this bit of responsibility, how can he be qualified? The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. His heartache was nothing more than fleeting clouds. What do you mean Xiao Bao will be your son? But towards her, Yan Haotian, Ru Yan and the others, Mu Yan wasn't the slightest bit stingy. Those special grade drafts that people scramble over outside, to them, are just candy that they can casually eat. Feng Haitang's heart is filled with gratitude towards Mu Yan, so she looks after the little master even more attentively. The young master in front of him could be said to be the most outstanding, and sensible child in the world. Other 4-year-old children might be acting like a spoiled child and rolling on the ground. But he was already so sensible that it made one's heart ache. The hard work and seriousness of his daily cultivation made her, an adult, feel ashamed of her inferiority. Chapter 303. He grew up without a father. That's why such a young child has to learn to be strong, to constantly work hard, to use his tender hands to protect his mother. He hadn't felt it when the young miss was around, but now that the young miss had disappeared, this child was left alone. Although little master didn't show it on his face. However, Feng Haitang felt that in such a big room, the small figure seemed so fragile and lonely. It made people want to give him the best of everything in the world. Feng Haitang still wanted to speak, but was interrupted by Yan Haotian, who brought her out of the room. The candlelight was still flickering in the room, and the window paper reflected the frail figure of the child, making it look so pitiful. Feng Haitang couldn't help but tighten her grip on Yan Haotian's hand and softly said, "Haotian, it would be great if our children in the future were half as sensible and smart as little master." When Yan Haotian heard this, the light in his eyes dimmed. He forcefully let go of Feng Haitang's hand and expressionlessly shook his head at her. He turned around and left. Haotian. Feng Haitang couldn't bear it anymore. She walked in front of him and stared at him. Her expression was stubborn, but her eyes were slightly red. Yan Haotian, how long do you want to run away? Don't tell me you still don't understand my feelings. Don't you believe me? Haven't we wasted enough time? She takes a step forward and grabs the man's hand. Her usually cold and elegant face, at this moment, reveals a deep and painful attachment. Haotian, I beg you, don't push me away again, don't pretend to not see me, okay? Yan Haotian closed his eyes. He did not dare to look at that face. The face was too young, too beautiful. She deserves the best man, and she deserves a better future. Not wasting time on an ugly man who was already crippled and had no future. Yan Haotian broke free from her hand and slowly drew out the words he wanted to say. Don't say any more. I'm not good enough for you. It's impossible for us. He only started to learn sign language after he started following Mu Yan. He learns very quickly, and it's also very easy for him to communicate with the miss, the little master, and the people from the ink camp. Even if he still couldn't speak, he could still live like an ordinary person. However, this was not enough. From then on, he could no longer call out Haitang's name. He could no longer comfort her when she was sad or laugh with her when she was happy. How could someone like him be worthy of the woman in front of him? Whether I'm worthy or not is up to me, not you. Feng Haitang grabbed his sleeve excitedly and couldn't help raising her voice. You obviously like me, and I like you too. We love each other. Miss and little master, everyone around us will bless us. Why? Why did you have to be so cruel and push me away? Yan Haotian's hand trembled, and then he wrote another sentence, You will find a man who is 1,000 times better than me. But I don't want any of those men. I only want you. Feng Haitang's voice trembled. She reached out and hugged him tightly. Yan Haotian, don't you understand? I, Feng Haitang, will only love you in this life. In my eyes, no other man can compare to you. Yan Haotian's body stiffened. He used all the strength in his body to stop himself from pulling her into his arms. Chapter 304. I'm just a waste, what can I bring you? Yan Haotian raises his head and closes his eyes, preventing the sourness from overflowing. When he opened his eyes again, his face had already regained its frosty decisiveness. His hand steadily lifts to his chest, gesturing what he wants to say. Feng Haitang, do you really want me to say it so clearly? I don't like you anymore. When your Feng family hit me when I was down, when I was at my lowest, when I broke off the engagement with you, I already didn't love you. When I see you, I will think of my miserable and destitute past. I hope you will never appear in front of me again. Do you understand? Feng Haitang suddenly freezes in place, her face turning pale inch by inch. Her voice becomes weak and trembling. Haotian, you're lying to me with these words, aren't you? You just want me to give up, right? Say whatever you want. Yan Haotian is still expressionless, gesturing against his will, but it's impossible for me to be with you. I hope you won't pester me again. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for me to do things in front of Mississippi. After saying that, he turns around and leaves without looking at Feng Haitang. She can no longer hold back her tears, and they fall from Feng Haitang's eyes. Sad weeping overflows from between her lips and teeth. That's why she didn't notice that the man walking in front of her turns around and looks at her. What kind of pain, desire, guilt, affection, but also a heart-wrenching despair. After Feng Haitang leaves, Xiao Bao sits in a daze under the candlelight for a while. Then he clenches his small fists, climbs down from the chair, and jumps onto the bed. The internal force in his body revolves. He wants to start cultivating. For the whole night, he doesn't sleep. He has to desperately become stronger, so that he can snatch his mother back. But with this level of cultivation, you will never be able to surpass me. A deep male voice rings in the room, making Xiao Bao jerk his head up. Then, he saw that annoying man. That lecher who snatched Nyangqin away. Give me back my mother. The small body shoots out like a cannonball, powerful internal force forming a whirlpool, its momentum majestic. However, the next moment, with a puff, all the internal force is like a punctured balloon, disappearing without a trace. Di Mingju is holding Xiao Bao in his hand. She grabbed him by the collar as if she was grabbing a monkey. Di Mingju looks at him expressionlessly. As I said, wanting to surpass Ben Jun at this level is nothing but an idiot's ravings. Let me go. Xiao Bao struggled with all his might, but he couldn't break free from the man's grasp. Bastard, give me back my mother. Di Mingju sneers, there's a trace of contempt in his eyes. You say that you want to become strong to protect your mother, but in fact, you'll only rely on her, stick to her, distract her for you, and forever be unable to break through the shackles and move forward. Xiao Bao was taken aback, and his small body stopped struggling. A trace of confusion and grievance appeared in her big blue eyes. I didn't. He didn't let his mother be distracted by him. He didn't let his mother be unable to move forward because of him. However, was there really no such thing? All these years, his mother had spent far more time on him than she had on herself. His mother's cultivation had clearly stagnated at the middle pre-celestial stage, unable to advance even an inch. However, she doesn't care at all. Instead, she practices the zither every day, refines drafts, and thinks of ways to make him break through steadily. He didn't share his mother's worries, he didn't protect her. Chapter 305. Her blue eyes were slowly covered with a layer of mist, and her small body curled up, looking indescribably aggrieved and sad. Mingju looks at the little boy's appearance in front of him, his heart inexplicably stifling, irritated and uncomfortable. You're a man. What's there to cry about? He stretched out his hand and clumsily and roughly wiped away the tears on Xiaobao's face. Then, he casually sat on a chair at the side and placed Xiaobao on his lap. All right, don't cry. In the future, don't stick to your mother anymore. If you want to become strong, Ben Jun can teach you. Xiaobao's long eyelashes were like crow feathers, and they were wet with tears. Gently trembling, he lifts his head, revealing a pair of blue eyes that are exactly the same as Mingju's. He looked at the man who was holding him. She felt that this lecher, whom she usually hated, was a little different today. His embrace was very warm and had the same feeling as the father in her dreams. Why do you want to teach me? Mingju frowns as he looks at the food on the table. It was so cold that it was hard to swallow. How could a child eat this? With a wave of his hand, the food on the table disappeared. Then, he replaced it with a few bowls of fragrant, steaming hot dishes that whet one's appetite. Eat first. Mingju says coldly. It seemed to be in order, but for the first time, Xiaobao didn't argue with him. Instead, he picked up the bowl and chopsticks. She just sat in the man's pocket, using chopsticks to eat. The fragrant food entered his stomach along with the heat, and his body became warm. The loneliness, fear, and bitterness of being alone in the house just now had all disappeared without a trace at this moment. Mingju waits until he's finished eating, then says, I can teach you martial skills, and even teach you to practice the cultivation method that surpasses the limits of Yinwu continent. Xiaobao put down his bowl and chopsticks and burped. Her small, jade-like face was bright red from embarrassment. However, he quickly pulled a long face and asked, What are you trying to do? Plot. Mingju snorts coldly, Mayan will become Ben Jun's wife sooner or later, and you will be Ben Jun's son, the future lord of the polar domain. This monarch naturally has to nurture you well. Otherwise, don't tell me you're going to throw this monarch's face. Xiaobao's face immediately flushed red, and he said angrily, Mother is not yours. So you're saying that you don't want to learn from me? Little Treasure's expression changed. His long eyelashes trembled slightly, showing that he was conflicted. Finally, he clenched his small fist and said loudly, Okay, I'll learn from you. But I will definitely find Nyangqin on my own and snatch her back. Saying that, he even shook his little fist, Nyangqin is mine, absolutely. Absolutely. I won't give it to you. Mu Yan stayed in the room for a while and found that the door couldn't be opened. The lock was even weirder. Even if she used all of her cultivation, she still couldn't move it at all. Mu Yan had no choice but to go back to bed and sleep. Early the next morning, someone delivered toiletries and breakfast. What made her regret was that the chef for breakfast today seemed to have changed. It wasn't as good as last night's dinner. Mu Yan stretches herself and gets up to walk out the door. As soon as she stepped out of the room, a pair of hands blocked her way. A black-robed youth appeared in front of him. He had a handsome face, red lips, and white teeth, but there was no expression on his face. It's even colder than Mingju.